If you just got back to your job site or home with your Harbor Freight mixer, super excited that you were gonna assemble it in about 30 minutes, start your project the same day, you opened your box, and that's probably why you're here. You were sorely mistaken, and so was I, and that's why we're making this video. Grab toilet paper or tissue paper for your tears, your favorite stimulant, and let's MacGyver this job. I'm gonna show you how to take this, plus your tears, sweat, and blood, and make this.
I'm only being sort of dramatic here. This had some of the worst instructions I have ever seen. All of the screws, bolts, and nuts came in 2 bags and none of them were labeled, and the instructions were horrible. So I've pieced this together based on videos I've watched online and trying to look at pictures of the assembled piece of equipment. Since none of my nuts, bolts, and washers came with any sort of labeling or separation, I started by laying them all out just to kind of see how many of each part that I had and see the length differences. So if I tried to put one in a spot and it didn't fit or it didn't work, I knew, okay, these are smaller or shorter or thicker or thinner. So I just organized everything to start. The first thing we're going to do is take this stand piece and attach it to the wheel bracket, and then we're going to attach it on the other side to the leg.
So as I put these on, I'm gonna go bolt, washer, and I can't see. It's easier for me to line it up if I can see it from this other side. Seems like you can't get it, but then you can kind of just look and push it through. And then we're gonna tighten this on this side. So we have a couple of options. You can use a ratchet. If you don't have a ratchet or a socket set, you also could use like 2 crescent wrenches, 2 channel locks, a channel lock and a crescent wrench. It's just obviously gonna be harder on some of the tighter spots to get that all aligned. And it looks like we'll get another one of those bolts and do the same thing here. So I'm just going through because I've started these all. And I'm just tightening everything. If you're really worried about it, you can hold this side with a channel lock or another ratchet while you tighten it down. And then same thing, we're just gonna get this side over here. And I feel like holding that nut on the other side, I can actually get this pretty tight. But again, if you're worried about that, you could hold it with another socket or wrench or something. So I'm pretty good with that. That's pretty snug. It does say after you have used this for a certain amount of hours, you wanna just go back through and make sure everything is tight because it may loosen with use.
To attach the wheels, we're going to use these 4 large flat washers and 2 cotter pins. And so you're going to go washer, wheel, washer, and then you're going to slide the cotter pin through the hole, and then you're going to bend it each way to hold it in place. So a needle nose plier would probably be easier. I just had a channel lock on site, so I used that to bend the cotter pin. When you place the lower drum, make sure you pay attention to the directionality. So the little metal piece of dowel sticking out, that's going to go over the wheels because that's what the motor is going to attach to. And then the orange side sticking out, that's where the handle is going to go. So make sure you put this on the right way. Then you're just going to attach the bolts, putting this in place through the holes that clearly are for the bolts. Now, I had zip ties on mine, so I had to cut those zip ties out so I could fully slide this into place. We're going to slide this handle control plate on, and then we're going to attach it through the holes with a bolt, washer, and a nut on the backside. Slide the spring into the handle, and then the piece with the little tiny bracket pieces sticking out is going to go toward the plate because that's what, as you tip things, it holds into those grooves, and that's how you can hold the piece at a tilt one way or the other. So you're going to go and put the bolt through. This is really hard to do.
One thing I do want to speak to is installing this lever was the absolute most difficult spot. I should have a washer on each side, but I had such a hard time getting it through that I was like, shoot, I just want to get it on there because of this spring. One thing I thought of, I don't have one at this house I'm working on. If you just got a clamp and clamped this down, it would push that spring down. Or if you had someone to help you hold this down, but it's a tight, tight spring, I would just get a clamp this, tighten it down, and then that bolt should go through. My bolt does not look the same as everybody else's bolt. And again, I haven't tightened this down yet, but honestly, it works fine without that bolt being tightened. So I'm not that worried about it, but you are gonna struggle getting this spring and getting it aligned up for your bolt. I would just get a clamp if you're planning this in advance and you're getting materials ahead of time. So since I'm tightening this side, I'll go ahead and put this washer on. I'm not taking that bolt out of there. That was really, really hard to get on, so that's just how it's gonna live. So now I'm just gonna put my crescent wrench on this side, maybe, and hold this side while we tighten it. Now it's a lever, we want it to move freely, so I'm not gonna crank this down too much. Really, I'm just trying to hold that lever in place. Bolt on. So still move freely and locks, that's what we want. All right, I did this wrong to start. So if you look down here, there's an arrow and your top piece has an arrow. In order for our blades on the inside to line up the way they should, those arrows need to go together. And so I've taken these bolts off and I'm gonna line the arrows up. Now, the other thing that it's gonna ask you to do, which is just crazy not realistic, is this gasket. It tries to get you to put it on the top upside down with the bolts coming and then flip it over. What I've done is just try to line it up and wedge it in there as I go, this gasket, rather than trying to get it on here, everything falls off. We're taking that arrow right there. I have my gasket laid down. I'm gonna try to do it a little different than they said. I have my arrow there, and I'm gonna line those bolts up. There's holes, so you'll see if you're on them or not. You can see that you have a hole, and then here as you go. Now my gasket, if you look in there, it's flattened out. But the first time I did this, it wasn't flat, so I had to push it in, line up the hole, and then put the bolt from the outside. I'm just gonna work my way around and put all of these guys in. To figure out the way you want to install the blades, you have to look at, they're gonna have where we had the two arrows to show where the bottom and the top of the components went together. There's also an arrow to show you which way that this is going to spin. But this shows us it's gonna spin this way. It's gonna go counterclockwise. So I want, when my blades are attached, I want them to be able to grab the mortar and dump it out. The way it explained the way the arrows point, I didn't think was very helpful and I didn't understand it. So you're gonna have those like that. So I'm gonna go ahead, I have the bottoms attached, I'm gonna attach the tops. I saw somebody install one of these and they had gaskets that they were able to use, like a gasket type washer also. I don't have 4 of those in my kit. A lot of people said they were missing parts. So I'm not gonna install those. I only had 3. Actually, I only had 2 rubber gaskets. This is black. I thought it was rubber, but it's, this is like metal. So there's only 2 rubber gaskets. And obviously there's 4 places these can attach. So that makes me wonder, are they not to be used here or did I just not get enough of them? So maybe I'll install 3 of what I have and see. So if I was to use the gaskets, I would go, I guess, bolt, washer on the outside, line that up in there. Well, I guess my gasket would probably be next if I'm gonna use that. So I have the little black rubber gasket, line that up. Just to get a visual, because that was honestly the thing that's helped me the most figuring this out, is just kind of looking at pictures of this assembled online. So this is gonna spin like that. So it's gonna pick up the mix, and then it's gonna drop it. And it's gonna pick up the mix, and it's gonna drop it as it spins.
You're going to twist and lock the motor hood into place, and then you're going to bolt it through and put the nuts on the backside. We interrupt this video to bring you an important message from the neighborhood homies, Jason Robert.
Hi. Hi. Anything important you want to say? No, don't be nervous. Subscribe. Yeah, subscribe.
This little metal piece locks everything into place. Screw this bolt into the center.
This piece is gonna sit on here and it's gonna support your motor. I think we're gonna attach that onto there through these spots. And we're gonna adjust this up and down depending on the tension that we want on the belt. And so we don't have to tighten this all the way yet. But what we're gonna do is you have these 2 bolts that don't have threads all the way through. They're straight and then they're threaded at the end. And you're gonna put those through here. they're gonna go in through the back side. So we're gonna take it and it's gonna go around, and I had to kind of wiggle this box a little bit to be able to straighten this out the way I wanted to. We're gonna try to push them in through these two spots. I'm gonna tighten them a little bit because I think once I get the motor on here, I'm gonna have to adjust the tension of the belt, and I might not want it at whatever height I'm putting this in at. And I'm gonna get them snug, but I'm not gonna crank them down yet. Now I'm thinking it's time we're gonna put our belt on, and then we're gonna set our motor right here. Put it this way so that our belt grabs on this, because we want, when our motor spins, we want it to spin that. So I actually, before I install this, I'm gonna bring this bracket up higher so I'm not making any tension, and then I'll pull this down tight once everything is installed. Gonna try again. So we've got our belt snugly in that, it's kind of got a groove in there, and then we also have it inside this groove right here. And then obviously that's not aligned. We're gonna align each of these. See those holes? Mine came bent, so that's okay. It's just a bracket plate for mounting it. So we're gonna get bolts through all these 4 holes, and then we'll make our adjustment here to the height of this holding plate. Be aware of alignment of these as you're tightening them. You just wanna make sure that this is not hitting, you know, this bolt sticking through or this bolt sticking through. So we're gonna center it so we're not fighting those two guys. I'm using my ratchet from underneath because I can't get to it from up there, so I'm reversing the direction and doing it from down here. The only guidance we get from the instructions is it says distance deflection, how much you should be able to push it, which obviously, okay, the belt should deflect anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 inches. So I need to tighten this a lot because I can completely push it in. So I'm going to go ahead and lower this from these bolts on the back. Okay, making sure none of our components in the back area that we looked at before are touching or running into each other. They're not. Okay, I'm gonna go to the back, tighten those bolts again. It looks like some of the older models you had to actually wire the switch, but this one just says that you're just gonna replace this cover. So they must have changed that on the newer models. So we're gonna, I guess I will need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. I have 1 bolt left that will fit through that hole. I guess I'm gonna put 1 just here on this top one. But I definitely think I did not get a full set of parts, and everything was just in a bag. So this is all I have that will fit in there. We'll do 1, I guess. And I'll find something at the hardware store later to just hold this together better. All right, moment of truth. Let's plug it in and flip that switch and see if it works.